Rome, 1979. Massimo and Trinca, two small businessmen, decided they want to make some money. And they were thinking, how can we do that? Suddenly, Trinca, or Alvaro, he thought of a plan. He remembered many of the players who were very regular in Serie A used to come to his restaurant for dinner and stuff. So they decided they are going to spend some money on those players and rig some games. The first match was between Lazio and Palmero. And fortunately, they made some money, they won it. So what happens when they won some money? They got greedy. And out of that greed, they started running bets in games. And suddenly what happened is some of their partners who were involved, they betrayed them and they fall in dead. What was the solution out of this? They couldn't find any. So they decided they're going to go to the police and inform on those players and clubs who were involved in those betting scams. 27 players and 13 clubs of Serie A were involved, and they provided the police with those names. After a match in 1980, the police stormed into the pitch and arrested players and club presidents, specifically AC Milan's president, out of the field in front of the whole audience and live TV. This incident is known as Totonero, and that's how the dark trilogy of Serie A, or the Italian Football League, actually started. Ladies and gentlemen, today in this episode of the Corner Flip podcast, we are going to talk about the Serie A and its demise. Now let's talk about the fallout of the Totonero. Legally, the case actually hit a snag. Italy at the time had no specific law against sporting fraud, so by 1980, all those arrested were acquitted in criminal court. However, football authorities took swift action. The Italian Football Federation handed down severe sporting punishments in May 1980. Some of the clubs that were involved were AC Milan, Lazio. Now, AC Milan and Lazio, they were relegated from Serie A to Serie B as a punishment. Three other Serie A clubs, Avellino, Bologna, and Perugia, and two Serie B clubs, Palermo and Taranto, were penalized with point deductions at the start of the next season. For example, Bologna, Avellino, and Perugia each began 1980 season with a minus 5-point penalty. These sanctions were unprecedented, casting a dark shadow over Italian football. But not only clubs, there were players as well. 20 players in total were banned, some for multiple years. Half of those players had been Italian internationals. The most famous was Paolo Rossi, who received a 3-year ban. That was later reduced to 2 years on his appeal. Now, this reduction actually allowed Rossi to return in time for the 1982 World Cup, where he remarkably became the hero of Italy's championship team. Veteran goalkeeper like Albertosi, who was of Milan, was banned for 4 years, and Lazio star Bruno Giordano and Manfredonia for 3.5 years each. Milan's president Felice Colombo was banned for life. In all, the bans for players and officials totaled about 50 years. The Totonero scandal exposed the vulnerability of Italian football to gambling-related corruption. It also led to reforms after 1980, where Italy introduced laws criminalizing sports fraud. Nonetheless, Totonero set a precedent. It was a catalyst for stricter oversight, but also the first of several betting scandals to plague Serie A. The name Totonero itself becomes synonymous with match-fixing in Italy, reappearing in later scandals. The next incident was known as Calciopoli, and it happened in 2006. Many investigators were actually wiretapping club officials and managers. Now, the wiretapping, or this whole operation, was called offside. Many of the club operators or managers were actually putting money in referee assigners' pockets so that a particular or a few particular referees could be present in some of the matches they want to fix. The biggest name that came was the then Juventus president. What were the implications of this incident known as Calciopoli? Juventus, they were relegated to Serie B, AC Milan was handed point cutout, Lazio was handed point cutout, there were bans all over. And this incident actually meant that the reputation of Serie A was again taken down to the mud through another scam which was related to game betting or match fixing. 5 years passed the incident of Calciopoli. There appeared another incident known as Calcioscommesse. And this incident, what the investigator found out, was truly shocking because this time no club officials nor any businessmen were involved. Rather, there was an illegal betting syndicate who were influencing players to fix matches, even number of goals, so that they can fix the whole league and profit from there. The first operation was known as Last Bet, and in this operation, in 2011-12 season, it was suspected that former Lazio captain Signori was involved in fixing matches and results in Serie B and other leagues. The next wave of arrests happened in December 2011, when the police actually arrested the then former Atalanta captain who led Atalanta to Serie A. Now, what they found out was most of these betting scandals were happening in Serie B and lower league of the Italian football system. And in these leagues, what happened is like the players, they were getting less paid, and that's why they were susceptible to taking bribes and fixing matches. And when you see, it's not Serie A, it's even in lower divisions, there were incidents which involved match fixing. And finally, the last wave of arrest happened when Italy was actually preparing for Euro in 2012. One of the defenders of the Italian Euro 2012 team was also arrested in suspicion of taking bribes.
So like the other two incidents, Italian sports courts again issued a raft of bans and point deductions in 21 to 2012 incident. Over 50 players were eventually disciplined, big names got heavy penalties. Ignori was banned for 5 years, Luciano Moggi was banned for 3.5 years. Lazio's Stefano Mauri was suspended for 9 months, which was later reduced on 6 on appeal. So like the other two incidents, the Italian sports court issued a raft of bans and point deductions in 2011-2012. Over 50 players were eventually disciplined. Big names got heavy penalties. Sigroni was banned for 5 years. Cristiano Doni was banned for 3.5. Lazio's Stefano Mauri was suspended for 9 months, which was later reduced to 6 on appeal. Other Serie A players like Andrea Maciali, who admitted scoring an own goal for a bribe, received bans, and dozens of lower league players were banned 1 to 5 years. Even a few goalkeepers like Gianfranco Gillet of Torino got multi-year bans. Several clubs across Serie B and Liga Pro had points reduced. For instance, at that time there was a newly promoted Atalanta, and because of Cristiano Doni's actions, they started the 2011-2012 Serie A season with a minus 6-point penalty. Serie B teams like Ascoli and Padova were docked points. In the lower divisions, one club named as Ravenna was expelled from the league. In total, over a dozen clubs faced sanctions, though most were outside the Serie A.
Ladies and gentlemen, so these were some of the biggest scandals that happened in Serie A from the timeline of 1979 till 22. Now, if you want to know more about what were the next thing that contributed to the decline of Serie A, stay with us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. In the next episode, we are going to talk about the other two influencing factors. One was doping, and the third one was mafia. Stay tuned, subscribe to Corner Flag Podcast. Thank you.